What's up, guys? My name's Adam Gusky, and you're listening to the Mad Awareness Podcast. So, if you'd consider yourself a pretty hardcore NCAA wrestling fan, college wrestling fan, you've probably seen these wrestling highlight videos that the University of Minnesota Gophers have put on over the last 5 or 10 years. Those were all created by this guy, Cole Schrupp from Watertown, Minnesota. And that's who I'm joined with on the show today. So, just to put it in perspective, he has had videos that have gotten over 1 million views on YouTube. So they're super well done, and I personally really enjoyed watching them. When I first started wrestling, I started wrestling in 8th grade, and then my freshman year, I watched this same Minnesota State Tournament highlight video from 2010 over and over all summer for the off season. And that was something that just kind of inspired me and showed me what the state tournament looked like to put a picture in my mind of a place that I want to be. So it was cool for me to get him on the show. But anyways, we dig into how he got into wrestling, how he started doing videos for wrestlers, and then how he got hooked up with the University of Minnesota. So a lot of good stuff. It's cool to hear about all the legends that he's gotten to know. And with that being said, let's get it rolling. Hey guys, before we get going, I want to say two things. One, I just got a new camera and it's better, and I forgot to use it. So that's on me. For this video, you'll only see Cole, but he's a great looking guy, so should be no problems there. Also, number two is I want to play a short 1 minute video of one of the videos that Cole's made. It's awesome. So with no further ado, here it is. All right, I'm here with Cole, the famous videographer for the Minnesota Gophers. How are we doing today?
Not too bad. Can't complain.
Little technical difficulties from the start, but now we're rolling, so you can't complain, right?
It's it is all good. I know technical difficulties all too well, my friend.
Yeah, so I guess why don't you just start with what do you do for a full-time job, and what are your hobbies in wrestling, I guess? How have you helped in the wrestling community?
Yeah, so right now, I'm working for an FMO, which is a financial marketing organization, as a multimedia producer, which is really similar to everything that I've been doing within wrestling. So I'm very comfortable there. A little different type of people that I'm working with, that's for sure. But I love it. I really enjoy my job right now, so I can't complain again.
That's awesome. So, how did you originally get into wrestling?
That's kind of an interesting one. I actually didn't start wrestling until ninth grade officially. My dad wrestled in high school. My brother started wrestling when he was about in first grade, and I think I tried it. I tried it in fourth grade. Absolutely hated it. I went to two tournaments and I was like, done. I'm out. Um, I always more interested in creative things, I guess. But that being said, I was always surrounded by wrestling growing up. So, I would be the one, we'd be making the road trips to Topeka or here or there or wherever, and I'd be in the practices. Long story short, came to ninth grade, I was like a notorious quitter of athletics. So whatever it was, baseball, taekwondo, football, I played till like ninth grade and nothing really stuck. And then we had two teachers join the school district that year that were some younger males. But one of them, you know, and we kind of looked up to these guys. They were cool. And one of them said, "Why don't you come out for wrestling?" And for whatever reason, I was like, yeah, why I should go out for wrestling. Why not? I actually thought that it would be a cool way to surprise my dad. I knew that it would like make his entire month. So, you know, that's kind of a long story short. But then once I was in the sport, it was just, you know, that's all I want to do. That's all I want to do. Sure. You want to do freestyle? Sure. You want to do Greco? Awesome. And then, you know, from there, it was just, that's what I was doing year round, wrestling.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of wrestlers, like once they start wrestling, they just get hooked on it, even though it's like a really hard sport. And like when you're not losing, like it, or when you're not winning, it is not fun. I guess like, what do you think about wrestling? Like, made you want to stick with it and like see how far you could go with it versus other sports?
You know what? I can't really say specifically, like, there wasn't one thing that happened, but I think that I was able to see improvements, like in performance. And like, I remember in ninth grade, like my dad was like, "Hey, you know what? If you go 500 this year, I'll give you $100." And I was
That's
like,
awesome.
"Cool, that's, you know, that's awesome." And um, but you know, every year I could see these. I would set these small goals. So like, I remember my sophomore year was to not get pinned against the number one ranked guy in the state, and I did it. And for me, you know, it was probably different than a lot of guys who had done it their whole lives, right? Where I was happy with that outcome. And over time, it led to, you know, I definitely wasn't the best wrestler, but going to the state tournament by the time I was a senior was something I didn't even think was possible. And I think that whole mentality of just setting small goals and being able to be realistic about it was kind of why I had any success in the sport at all.
Yeah. That's a great point because I have a similar story like you where I started wrestling in eighth grade and then my freshman year I was like a starter because like the good guy got hurt or something and I should not
Right,
have been a starter. But I was like I won like one match and lost like 20. So from there I pretty much had to improve. But like
right.
yeah, like I don't know, I think just sticking out that first year and then just like seeing like you have to improve that it's a sport that really like measures you consistently over time. So I guess maybe that's what it is. Cause yeah,
No, absolutely, it does. It does.
yeah. So when did you start getting into like the videographering, if that's what it's called?
I'd say videography, you know,
Okay,
video guy, whatever you want to say.
that's
But
better.
you know, that kind of starts uh, at a young age as well. Like my dad filmed all of my brother's matches, so he had a camera, and you know, he'd let us kind of take it out and play with it and do whatever we wanted to. Um, and then as high school came around, I was always the guy with the camera, right? I think there's, you know, everybody in high school knows that there's like the guy with the camera. And, you know, I just thought um, it was a cool thing to kind of be able to film something and be creative. And, you know, if you want to go make a movie with your friends, you can do that. But, you know, I think there's a picture I have of me on the bench during a wrestling meet. And when I wasn't competing, I was filming people. And so, you know, it really wasn't much more than like I'd film my brother's matches and then I'd make highlight videos of him or myself and stuff like that. And it just kind of really went from there.
Nice. So that was like early in high school then?
Yep, that was, I had my own camera by 10th grade, I think, 10th or 11th grade, and then I was just filming everything. Um, and I eventually went to Minnesota State Mankato. I stayed there for 2 years as I think it was communications major, maybe. I can't really remember, but that it was never the plan for me to continue doing video work as a career until um, there's a couple guys that ended up at Northern Michigan University. Chaz Betts, he was a state champ for St. Michael in WWE right now. He was up at Northern Michigan. He was one of my good buddies, and he was like, "Hey, they have a digital cinema program up here. You should think about transferring." And I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And so that's how I ended up at Northern Michigan, and the video stuff started to become more of a focus for me, kind of fine tuning it, getting into the art program and all of that. So it kind of carried through, um, you know, so that's kind of, how it started, I guess. Yeah.
So Northern Michigan, that's I don't want to sound dumb, but that's like the place with the big Greco development program, right?
Yep. So that's where like, Andy Bezic, Chaz Betts, there was a handful of Minnesota guys, Spencer Mango, who am I leaving out? Jake Fisher, Joe Betterman, all these top-notch Greco guys. And that's actually, it was really fun being up there at that time around 2006, 2007, because that's when the Greco team won the world title. Um, I think that's the first and only time they've won it. So to kind of be in that mix with those guys was really special. And what was going on in USA Greco was really cool.
Yeah. So they had a big program for what you were going there for. Did you do any like videos for like the Greco guys?
I would show up, like, it was all passion stuff, so it was like, um, and not to, go back, but, back in high school, I remember, Mike Thorne was like, "Hey, you should make a video for me." And I was like, "Yeah, or maybe I was in college at the time. I can't even remember. I might have been freshman or sophomore because Mike's a couple of years younger than me. So he reached out to me. Then once Mike had a video, Sanders is reaching out to me. And I was like, I remember coming home with a bag full of just these, high A tapes that are like this big and just stacked. And I was so pumped about it. But, that's how it was at Northern. I didn't really do any videos for the program specifically, but sometimes I'd show up, shoot some practices, and make some videos. Or like Spencer would be like, "Hey, I want a video. Can you make me a video?" And I'd be like, "Absolutely, that's going to be awesome." So it was nothing that was paying money really, but it was just fun to do. Just loved it. And, I'd go back on my spring breaks and the state tournament would be going on. I'd show up and I'd just shoot the state tournament and put together a highlight video just because it was fun. And, it was pretty well received, which was really cool. So, that's just kind of an overview. It was
Yeah.
just a lot of fun.
Yeah, like I told you before this, like that, I don't know what it is, like 2011 or 2012 Minnesota State tournament video. I would
Hmm.
watch that like every day my freshman year of high school, and I was like, this is awesome. I want to be there. And it
It,
obviously has a ton of
yeah,
views, and
man.
I'm sure hit a lot of people since it's been out.
It's kind of, yeah, I mean, it's kind of wild to, people still will reach out to me via Facebook or something. I'll be like, "Dude, that one video was my favorite video." And I'm like, "Man, that's from like 15 years ago,"
Yeah.
but like people don't, it's a lot of memories. And that's what's special about video. Or like, Ryan Mango's been putting out a lot of content, on Twitter of folk style, freestyle, Greco. And
Yeah.
um, I think he, tweeted something to Jordan Burroughs, and Burroughs was like, "Hey man, I remember when I was in college watching
Yeah.
Sanders video, Thorne, you and your brother, and I was
So
like,
were
man,
those
this
your
is great.
videos?
So those were mine, yeah.
That's crazy.
Spencer's and Ryan's, and like if you look at Max Nowry, there's a handful of them, and so it was kind of cool to just see, Burroughs kind of say that where, um, he remembers watching those videos, which is kind of
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, that's got to be just like pretty surreal. I mean, that's Jordan Burroughs, the king of wrestling. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, after that, I graduated, went back home, worked for my dad for a little bit, and then I started getting involved with Chad Erickson. I think
Okay.
couple-time All-American Gophers. He coached us back in high school in freestyle, and he was like, "Hey, Schrupp, I want you to come, do some videos for me. I'll, give you some cash or whatever." And we did, and that's kind of how I got in really at the U, was by working with Chad. Um, and so they actually reached out to me to come on in and do some of their work, and so that's kind of how that all started.
Man, that's really cool. What year was that roughly?
That was 2011,
Okay.
2012. So that would have been Zach Sanders was his senior year.
Okay. So, like, I'm from Wisconsin, and I remember I graduated high school in 2015, and I remember like seeing all these really cool, like, high quality, professionally made videos of the Gophers, like, when I was graduating, and a couple years before that, made by you. But like, it, like, you don't see those videos from other schools, and I just think that's like, I know like budgets are probably a problem, but if that was something that like more teams did, like that would be great for just like recruiting and promoting to fans, because those videos just like get you hyped up after watching them.
Oh yeah, and I think you know, current day and age, there's a lot of super talented people that are out doing video now, and I think Jay Robinson is always a marketing guy, right? His wheels are always turning, and I think that's one of the reasons they brought me in is they saw that video was powerful for marketing, and I think the U of M was probably one of the first teams to really go down that road,
Definitely.
and you're seeing it quite a bit now, um, with teams and promoting themselves through video. So it's really cool to see. But I think the University of Minnesota was just one of the first teams to really go down that road, and I'm just grateful that they were, I was able to be a part of it.
What was like, so like they kind of hit you up to come to Minnesota and do some like shots, I guess. And what was like your first experience like there?
Gosh, I met with Jay Robinson. That was that was like kind of a moment. You grow up in Minnesota, looking up to a guy like Jay Robinson, and I had never met Jay before, but um, he's Jay Rob, and for me to kind of walk into his office was a little surreal. But Jay, he kind of runs the ship, and um, really all I can say about Jay is like, once if you put in an effort for him, you're one of his guys for life. And that was great. But otherwise, I had known Brandon Eggum. He coached us when we were in high school. Jason Ness, I think, was on staff at that time, and I'd known Ness from, back in the day competing. So and actually, a lot of guys that were on that team are guys that I had known previously. So it was comfortable for me. Sanders, Zilverbergs, Thorns, all those guys. So it was, they were a little bit younger than me, but it was really cool to be involved that year.
Man, are there any like really good Minnesota wrestlers that you don't know? It seems like you just have
That's
all the
actually crazy
connections.
because I just said Danny Silverberg and the Silverbergs, and I actually did Danny's highlight video too. Like, um, there's been so many, I feel like, over the years that you almost forget, you know,
Yeah,
like, but yeah, you know, you know how wrestling goes though. It's, you know one person, you know another person.
yeah,
It's actually, this is side story, but for my FMO, I traveled out to New Jersey, and one of the financial advisors I was working with had a big Penn State, like stone Nittany lion on his desk, and I was like, "Oh, Penn State, huh? What's up with that?" Like he's like, "Oh yeah, my daughter goes there." Uh, he starts talking about it, and I'm like, "Yeah, I was the videographer for Minnesota wrestling." He's like, "Oh yeah, Frank Molinaro, my brother coached him when he was a little kid," and I'm like, "What? This is," but like that's how it is, with wrestling. Like you can almost go anywhere, and if you know dig a
yeah.
little bit, somebody's got some sort of a connection, and it's just crazy like that,
That's truer words have not been spoken. Like the
right?
connection and like the web of people is just it's crazy. Everyone knows each other.
Hmm. No, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So like what were you like riding on the bus with like the guys or like how close were you with like the team when you were making the videos and stuff?
Yep. So I actually, for most of my time at the U, I was working, um, either part time or full time, and then I would travel with the team, for the most part, like to every away duel. So a lot of my vacation time was spent traveling to, do more work, which I didn't mind. But yeah, so they would, we'd show up a day or two early, get on the plane, fly out to Penn State, come back, um, start working on the video stuff that night, and then, you know, back to work the next day. Um, so as far as like how often I was on campus, it was maybe once a week, once a week usually, to meet with Jay or Brandon, or sometimes twice a week to get some interviews with the guys. But yeah, lots of, traveling to pretty much everything.
Yeah, that's cool. So I'm sure you do a lot of those guys like super well.
Yeah, it was, um, you definitely form a connection with the athletes. And, you know, for the most part, I try to kind of stay out of the way in terms of like competition, but you do get to know those guys and their personalities and, who they are as people, which is kind of nice because I think in athletics today, a lot of fans don't get that experience. They see the athletes, they cheer for the athletes, but they don't really get that inside look at some of these guys and what they go through. And I definitely had, a newfound respect for college athletes for sure. Just some of them, I don't even know how they have time to do schoolwork because these guys just go 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 go.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. The Division 3 level was intense enough for me, so I'm sure it just gets amped up at the Division 1 level, especially at a high level program like Minnesota.
No, absolutely. My brother wrestled at St. John's, and so I kind of was able to see, what he had to go through to be an athlete and a student, and it is not easy, and it's definitely not for everybody. But my respect level, went up here once I kind of got to see the inner workings of everything.
Yeah, definitely. So, what are like your favorite memories or like are there any like funny stories you have or funny J-Rob stories that you can think of that stick out? I'm sure there's tons.
J-Rob, you know what? Here's one thing that I'll say about uh, J-Rob is that, and I learned this. It was kind of funny. So we'd get off our flight, go get our rental vehicles, and we'd usually have about 3 or 4 vans, and each coach would take a van. Um, but you would almost see everybody just scatter away from Jay's van. And I'm like, I don't know, what's the deal? And like, let's just say Jay likes to like multitask. So, um, I caught right away that, hop in the first van with Eggum, hop in the first van with Becker or Ness or someone else. Just, nobody wanted to ride with Jay, but the videographer usually gets stuck with Jay. So, otherwise, I think some of my favorite memories, I mean, it's really hard to pick a lot, or I mean, it's really hard to kind of like narrow it down, because you got to
Yeah.
remember that first year I was with the team, they were good. They were, I think, third that year, then second, then third, national duels champs, maybe 3 years in a row. Um, but I think one that really stands out to me was when Sam Brancale pinned Thomas Gilman down at Carver. Um, that was absolutely nuts, just because it was so awkward. Like the reaction. I've never been in an arena where it just was complete silence besides the guys that were right behind me. And, Carver, it's loud and you can feel that energy. But when Sam pinned Gilman, it was like, it was eerily silent, you know. So that one always will stand out, because I think it was also kind of unexpected.
Yeah.
But, you know, those national duels years were great because we had lost to both Oklahoma State and Iowa earlier in the season. And then to see guys come back and make adjustments and um, was really special. I think Dylan Ness, maybe just his whole career for me, being present for that was like, that was a roller coaster, man. And, when he pinned Alton, to, win that duel for us, essentially, um, not sliding Danny Zilberberg, who kept David Taylor down to maybe a decision or a major. But that moment, I've never seen a place so loud and, with so much at stake. It was, those number one versus number two duels were always fun. I'm trying to think, obviously like Tony Nelson winning a national title.
Yeah.
That was my first year with the team. And I remember being backstage with Tony before he was getting ready in a little room, and it was just me, Tony, and Jay. And, that was kind of something I'll never forget either, just kind of being in the moment there and seeing what he's going through, getting ready to go out there and do that. So, but I would say, like, in general, some of my favorite moments are just guys stepping up to the plate when nobody really expected them to. So, or maybe not nobody, but seeing Danny Zilberberg become an All-American for the first time, Cody Yon being an All-American for the first time. There was a time when Cody Yon got pinned by Mike Evans in the duel, and at national duels, Cody came back and beat him. And I just remember Cody having this big smile on his face. It was in overtime, and there's just so many moments like that. It's hard to remember all of them.
Yeah. Fair enough. Fair
And
enough.
and just you know what? Shout out, one of the more recent ones was Ethan Lezak, um, beating Austin DeSanto, just because he got his butt kicked so bad in the duel, and he just turns around with that goofy smile, and like, those are the things that kind of stand out.
Because so DeSanto beat him in the duel, but then Lezak beat him at nationals. Is that how it went?
So DeSanto beat him in the duel, but then at Big Tens, Lezak beat him, and I think
Okay.
DeSanto beat him at nationals after that. But it's stuff like that just kind of stands out.
What is Ethan Lezak like?
You know what? I never know what he's thinking. I don't even know if I don't even know the real Ethan, honestly. Like in person, he's so quiet. He's so quiet. Um, and, soft spoken. And I always said, like, sometimes when he would go out there to wrestle, it looked like they just grabbed kind of a random kid off the street and just put him into a D1 wrestling match. Like, and then he goes out there and just puts points on the board. But always respectful, always enjoyed talking to him. Not quite like a charismatic, um, as charismatic as say like Steve Blyes. Steve Blyes was, you know, joking around all the time. He'd come up to me and like high kick my camera. Come away this close from the camera, and then
Oh boy.
big smile, laughing. Um, love those guys, but such a diverse group of personalities on that team.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been fun like just watching Lezak and all the like promos and stuff about him with him like where the elevator opens and then he's got his backpack on and stuff. That stuff is hilarious.
Yeah, yeah. That was like, I think that was an Eggum production for sure. Brandon's also kind of what? If you get him in the right scenario, he's a great storyteller. Have you ever heard about the egg roll?
Mm-mm.
No. Well, sometime if you ever come across Brandon, ask him to tell you about the egg roll story. And just a generic overview was it's a move that he did in the junior national finals, but every time he's told this story since we were in high school, and it just gets more and more ridiculous every time he tells it. So like he'll but no, Brandon, yeah, he's a great storyteller, a good guy. And if you ever get a chance to hear about the egg roll or ask him about it, do it. You will
Man.
not you'll be entertained for sure.
Man, my coach runs like a big wrestling camp in the summer. I think last summer or the year before that, Eggum was there. And now I'm mad that I didn't know about this before because I could have asked him.
I'm surprised he didn't bust out the egg roll story in front of a crowd. But you should try and get him on this podcast. Maybe he'll tell it.
That would be awesome. I'd love to hear it. So, who are like, I don't want to make you pick favorites because you've met probably tons of people that are amazing, but who are just like some of your favorite people that you've gotten to be around just since filming for the Gophers?
Gophers, Gopher wise,
And let's say besides
Eggum for sure.
coaches,
Besides coaches, okay,
making it
wrestlers.
harder.
Um, let's see. You know what? I gotta go with Nick and Chris Dardanes. They're two guys that stand out to me. Um, Kevin Steinhaus, Kevin Steinhaus, Logan Storley. A lot of guys stand out to me from that first year. They were all, kind of similar guys that they did things the right way, and they went, when it was time to wrestle, they were there to wrestle. Uh, David Thorne is someone that I know personally. He's a good friend, and I do some work for him here and then. But all these guys that were there that first year were guys that had the same mentality and the same values, and that really just stands out to me, um, for one reason or another. Um, but I guess in terms of like guys that I like to watch and compete, you got to throw Dylan Ness up there
Yeah,
for sure.
fair enough.
Just
What
never
about
never a dull moment.
yeah, no, I mean, I feel so like such like a bandwagon fan when saying this, but who doesn't love watching Dylan Ness win or lose? Really, either of them are so exciting just because he pulls out so much random stuff.
No, yeah, yeah. And it was wild to see because a lot of these guys were younger when I was in high school. Like a true story was I remember being at Fargo, I think my junior year or my senior year, and little Ryan Mango and little Dylan Ness were like the same weight. And they were like jibber jabbering back and forth to each other about how they were going to beat each other. And so, like, to kind of be able to see these guys reach the Division I peak and compete at that level, it just made it that much more special for me to, be able to capture those moments and supply those moments to them for, hopefully they can look back on those videos, you know, the rest of their lives and, cherish those times.
Yeah. And then I just want to know who are like the funniest guys you've come across in the Gopher room.
Steve Bly's Steve Bly's is hands down. I think I showed up for one of the preseason practices, and what they did was they put guys into groups of like four teams, right? And every Saturday they'd do some conditioning type game that was focused on like teamwork, right? And then throughout the course of the summer, your team would get points, and at the end, there's a team that wins. And I just remember there was one exercise where they had to push a sled down and back on a football field. One guy would come back and the other guy would go. And Steve was just trolling everyone vocally, like to get under their skin. And he did. And I think that was actually maybe it was Steve's junior year, but um, or maybe it was his senior year. No, it was his senior year, but like it was just funny to watch him. He was always such a personable person. Always, respectful towards me, but um, just always a smile on his face, always a joke to tell, always a way to lighten the mood. Um, he kind of stands out to me as someone who was just fun to be around.
Good stuff.
And you know what? You almost just forget there's so many guys that have come through that program. Um, so I don't want to, shortchange anyone, but um, and maybe it's just because it's recent why I'm saying Steve, but you know, yeah, Steve
Yeah.
Bly's.
I don't know why, but I feel like out of all of the like wrestlers that are somewhere in my head that I've heard about over like the last 10 or 20 years, so many of them are from Minnesota. Maybe that's because of your videos. Maybe it's because I'm from Wisconsin, so I'm kind of near Minnesota, and Wisconsin wasn't that good before
Mhm.
for a while. But man, there's just like so many Minnesota people, and there's so many I don't know about. So it's just that part blows my mind.
Oh yeah, and the crazy part is now I'm getting to the point where I only know a couple high school kids, which is kind of sad. But like I guess that's kind of how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, the older you get, it feels like there's all these young kids that you don't care about, and then they're just in like the Division I national finals or something, and it's like, who is this guy? So,
Right. It's actually, a side story is um, my wife now, when we were dating, I asked her if she wanted to go check out the state tournament. Like, sweet, like bring your girlfriend to the state tournament. I'm sure she really wants to go. Like she's from New York. She has not experienced wrestling at all. But she was like, yeah, let's go. I'll check it out. And that was the year that Mark Hall won his sixth state title. So we watched the
mm,
finals, and um, she has kind of latched on to wrestling as well. She really loves watching it now, and she knows the guys' names. Um, and we were watching Big Ten championships or something, and she goes, "Oh, that guy from Penn State, he's the one that played the flute, right, or the piccolo or something."
yeah.
But so it's it's just such a great experience to see those guys come up from high school and do so well.
That's a great tip
So yeah,
because I'm trying to get my girlfriend, to watch more wrestling. We watched like that film on Marinelli and Eli Stickley, which she's getting into, but I'll have to bring
yeah.
her to the state tournament.
You know what? I think it's one of those things where you either love it or you just don't. And I think naturally my wife, like she loves to watch MMA.
Okay.
And so wrestling is kind of like,
Yeah.
right there with it for her. And it was hard for her to get into it at first, but once she went and then she went and watched the Gophers, um, you know, she just fell in love with it too. So I'm fortunate that she enjoys going to watch the team and all that. But yeah, she loves it.
That's awesome. The last question I got for you is just how has wrestling in high school and then being around wrestling and like one of the most high level programs ever, the Gophers, like just changed the way that like you live the rest of your life or left an impact on you?
Yeah, you know what? I could talk a little bit about something, some people know, some people don't, and I'm totally cool with talking about it, but I battled substance abuse, alcohol addiction for a long time. And I remember um, going in, and Jay called me into his office and he wanted to talk about it because I had talked to Egum about it, about, seeking help. And, he sat me down and he said, you're a wrestler. You wrestled. You are tougher than 90% of the people on the planet. And, I kind of was like, okay, Jay, like, I'm pretty sure I'm not tougher than 90% of the people on the planet. But he said, no, it's true. It's true. And you're going to find a way to beat this because you wrestled and you're going to apply all those things moving forward. And, um, I'm 4.5 years clean now. So,
That's awesome.
I thought that a lot of things that I learned in wrestling um, and that I continued to learn by just being around that team were just things that you can apply in recovery as well. And so, um, it's tough to say. I guess I would just say, I'm very grateful for what I've learned in wrestling because it does carry over. It does carry over, putting in time um, carries over to your job, carries over to your life. Um, and so, yeah, I'm just grateful for that.
That's awesome. That's an awesome story, and that's cool that
Mhm.
wrestling helped you get through that.
Absolutely.
But that is all I got for you. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. But also just thanks for taking the time to do the podcast and getting through those first technical difficulties that we had.
No problem at all, man. I'm glad. Thanks for allowing me to speak. I've been kind of removed from wrestling for at least a year now, so at least in video terms. So it's kind of nice to get back and chat about it and you know think about old memories and stuff like that. And yeah, I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no problem. That's it for today, guys. Thanks for tuning in. As always, I appreciate it. I'm glad that the listenership is growing and more people are enjoying it. I got a little special announcement that we got some Mad Awareness t-shirts. You can find those at tdpclothing.com. That's tdpclothing.com. I think they're pretty sick, but I'm also pretty biased because I designed them. So, take it for what you will. But anyways, you can also find the link in the Mad Awareness Instagram bio. Also, if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, please leave a rating and review. And if you are listening to this and want to find the actual video of the podcast recording, you can check it out on the YouTube channel. And that can be found by searching Mad Awareness on YouTube. So with that being said, have a great rest of your week, and thanks for tuning in. See ya!